Today we're talking lightsabers in real life. All the different parts, styles, types, inner workings and electronics, LEDs, just all of that good stuff. It's gonna be dope. Hello there and welcome. This is Star Wars in Real Life, where we do the Star Wars instead of actually important things, like hanging up picture frames that have just been on the ground for an unacceptable amount of time. This video is part of a series of videos made to help you build your own lightsaber. That's what I'm doing right now, and you can check out that playlist right up here because it's freaking hard. I've been trying my best and I can't even tell the difference between a simple momentary switch or a latching switch, as my friend Z so kindly pointed out to me the other day.
When you're looking at power drills and light switches are analog electronics.
Check out my Lightsaber Academy tier on Patreon for more in-depth lightsaber building content. So why would I make an entire video about just a blade? Why would someone need this many blades? And why are they different colors and all that? Let's start with the exterior of the blade. A real-life lightsaber blade is literally just a plastic tube. Unless you're the hacksmith, in which case a real-life lightsaber blade is a real-life lightsaber blade. It's almost always made out of polycarbonate, which is a really strong and durable but lightweight plastic. Sometimes used in police riot shields and even hockey rink barriers. Blades can either be completely clear and transparent like this, or they could be completely opaque and white like this, or they could be somewhere in the middle for a more cloudy, frosted type of look like this. Lightsaber blades can even come colored, and those are called day blades because they show up best on bright sunny days even if the lightsaber is off. The outer diameter of a lightsaber is usually either 1 inch or 7/8 inches wide, and they usually come in two different thicknesses, either thin-walled or thick-walled. Thin-walled blades are sometimes called mid-grade blades or show blades because they're mainly used for show, not for dueling. Thick blades are for dueling. They're sometimes referred to as heavy grade because the thicker the plastic, the more abuse it could take, the more you can fight with it. There are some drawbacks to that though. With a thicker plastic, it's a little bit harder for light to shine through, so it might not be as bright as a thin-walled blade. More plastic is also heavier, so if you're into tricking, you might notice that you can't spin these as fast. And if you hit yourself with a heavy grade blade, it's gonna hurt a lot more. Another way that lightsabers can vary is by their length. Let's look at Ahsoka Tano's lightsabers, for instance. Whether we're talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, or The Mandalorian, Ahsoka uses two keywords, lightsabers of different lengths, with one of them being significantly shorter than the other. This one is sometimes called a shoto. That's a Japanese term used to describe a short sword. And depending on where you shop for lightsabers, you might have several options for what length blade you can get, but they're typically between 32 to 36 inches. And a shoto is around 24 inches or 2 feet. The length that you should use is 99% based on personal preference, but height certainly does play a factor. I am 5'8", for example, and I prefer a 32-inch blade. I don't know, 32 is just way more comfortable. I like to do spitty tricks all the time indoors, so I don't have to worry about hitting other people or objects as much with a shorter blade than a 36. But ultimately, it is just plastic. So if you want to get a 40-inch blade from the custom saber shop and cut it down, you can certainly do that. If you're using a double-ended blade, you're going to want to go shorter still. And a good rule of thumb for that is to aim for a total lightsaber length equal to your height. So if you are 5 feet tall, for instance, let's say your lightsaber hilt is 1 foot long, you should get two blades that are 2 feet each. 1 plus 2 plus 2 equals 5 feet. That should be pretty comfortable for general usage. And if you intend on doing a bunch of spinning and tricking with them, you might want to get a few inches shorter. Now let's talk about lightsaber styles, because not every lightsaber blade is a perfect tube. Kylo Ren's lightsaber, for instance, has 3 blades, and since he's got a cracked kyber crystal, his lightsaber has that crackly, fiery flame look that normal lightsabers don't have. There are some soundboards that can trigger the LEDs to flicker on and off really quickly in oranges and reds. I've also seen people use clear, messy amounts of silicone adhesive on the outside of the blade, which just by itself makes the blade look kind of like a flame. And then when you add light to it, it looks that much more realistic. It's pretty cool. Then we've got double-bladed lightsabers like Darth Maul's and the Darksaber, which mimics a more traditional flat sword shape. Not many companies make Darksaber replicas, but the ones that do actually make their blades out of acrylic instead of polycarbonate, which is not nearly as durable invisible, so you can't fight with it. But the cool thing about acrylic is that if you shine a light to one of the edges, it'll refract and spread the light out to all the other edges, and also to any engraved areas on the surface of the blade. So any scratches that you make for the lightning designs on the surface of the acrylic, those are going to shine as well, giving an excellent representation of that Darksaber look. Something that always was, and still very much is, hard for me to accept is why blade tips have to be a thing. It's my understanding that there isn't a single manufacturer in the entire galaxy that makes just a single lightsaber blade tube with one of the ends closed off. They're only ever manufactured as perfect tubes with openings on both ends. So tips are made separately, and then they're either glued on or they come threaded so that you could screw them on. Because of this, it's super common for these things to just fly off in the middle of a duel. Regardless of whether it's glued on or screwed on, these will fly off. Mine flew off the very first time I fought with it. Granted, I was fighting a tree, but yeah, as you can see, that's a threaded tip and I never found it. It's gone forever. They come pointed like this, or less pointed, parabolic tip, or they come rounded like this one right here. It's a rounded tip. You get it. This next piece is something that I probably should have mentioned in my last video. That is a blade plug, because blade plugs don't plug blades, they plug hilts, because nothing makes sense in this world. You're gonna want one of these if you ever plan on turning on your lightsaber without a blade inside of it, because you will inevitably accidentally shine it into someone's eyes and blind them like I am blinding you right now. Blade plugs slide into the emitter opening like this, and they will either completely block out the light or provide a cool diffused look like this, or they will just minimize the amount of light coming out. Sometimes when you purchase the lightsaber, it'll come with the blade plug, other times it won't. Just be cautious of that. Oh my god. Okay. So that was the outside of the blade. Now, let's go in. We're going inside. So as I mentioned before, lightsaber blades can sometimes come in a white color like this. This is to help diffuse the light coming out of the blade, because without it, if you just have a completely clear, transparent blade like this, you've just got this going on. What the hell is that? Having a diffused blade helps you distribute and spread out that light more evenly across the entire length of the blade like this. But even if you have a completely transparent blade like this, you can replicate that cloudy, frosted look by taking some sandpaper across the surface. That being said, it's usually not enough. That's why a lot of people use a second layer of diffusion. One of the more popular ones is called cellophane. Is this very thin, clear type of plastic that I think you use sometimes for like gift wrapping. So it's not completely transparent, it just helps spread the light out. Another great thing about cellophane is that when you try to put it back into your blade, you get to trap your finger in it like this for eternity. This is actually happening. We're gonna let this happen. Okay. And because it's so thin, you're hardly taking up any space inside of the blade, which means the light coming out of your lightsaber has enough space to reach the tip of the lightsaber, which is what you want. Another popular option, particularly for those who have LEDs inside of the blade, is white foam, which is what I've got going on inside of here. Foam actually has two benefits. Yes, it's very good at diffusing the light, but it also protects the LEDs inside of the blade. But if you just have typical flashlight type lightsaber like I do here, there's really no point in using foam because you're not protecting anything. But more importantly, foam is just way too restrictive. It blocks all the light. There's really no point in using foam for flashlights. There are three types of LEDs that you should know about: single or accent LEDs, tri-cree LEDs, and neopixel LEDs. Single or accent LEDs, they're super tiny. It's basically just one LED on its very own circuit board. It's pretty much never used to light up an actual lightsaber blade. Instead, these are used for accent lighting on hilts. Tri-cree LEDs are basically three of those on one circuit board like this. There are three LEDs on it, and each one can be configured to be a specific color all on its own. For example, if I have three red LEDs on this, that would produce a red lightsaber blade. If only one was red and the other two were configured to white, it would produce a pinkish blade. You know, colors. And then lastly, you've got neopixel, which is is a brand of LEDs that's super duper popular for two main reasons. One is it's very high density, and two, these LEDs are individually addressable. Density refers to the total number of LEDs you have in your lightsaber blade, and that's super important because the more LEDs you have, the more your blade will look like an actual beam of light instead of just a string of LEDs. For example, take a look at these Philips Hue lights. These have about 5 or 6 LEDs per foot. If I were to put these into a double diffuse lightsaber blade, it wouldn't look very good at all, nor would it be very bright. NeoPixels, on the other hand, have 44 LEDs per foot. So you can control each individual LED completely on its own, separate from all the others. For example, the LEDs on my Philips Hue strip are not individually addressable, so that entire strip can only ever be one color at a time. With NeoPixel, you can program 144 different LEDs to be 144 different colors all at the same time, which presents you like basically unlimited opportunities for customizing your blade effects. So now that you know about LEDs, we can talk about the two methods you can use for lighting up your lightsaber. You can either have LEDs inside of your hilt emitter like this, which gives you a more flashlight style lightsaber, or you can have LEDs inside of your blade. There are pros and cons to each. In-hilt LEDs are protected by a solid metal hilt, and therefore they are much durable and last much longer, which make them the preferred choice for dueling. And since you can only fit so many LEDs inside of your lightsaber hilt, the battery draw is going to be much less than a NeoPixel setup would be, and it's going to be significantly cheaper. A single Tri-Cree LED like this is going to run $20 to $25 on the customsabershop.com. Plus, since all of the tech is inside of your hilt, you never have to worry about blade compatibility issues. You can take one blade out, take another, pop it right back in, and you're done. The disadvantages of going in hilt, the brightness is going to be severely limited in its intensity and reach. Here's my lightsaber blade, for instance. As you can see, it starts from bright and then barely makes it to the tip of the lightsaber. And you're also going to be limited by the types of blade effects you can use. In-hilt LED lightsabers are preferred for doing simpler lightsaber builds, or when you're on a budget, or for dueling. With in-blade NeoPixel LEDs, your blade is going to be much fuller and much brighter, and you're going to open yourself up to many more lightsaber blade effects. The downsides of NeoPixel are in regards to cost, compatibility, and durability. Having hundreds of LEDs inside of your blade is going to cost you way more than just having 3. A single NeoPixel strip with 144 LEDs on it is going to cost you $60 to $70. You need 2 of them per blade. Plus, having 288 LEDs in your blade is going to drain your battery way faster. You'll have to invest in more batteries, especially if you plan on going extended periods of time with your lightsaber turned on, like at a convention or if you ever go trooping. With regards to compatibility, if you have multiple lightsaber hilts, your NeoPixel blade will only work for those that have been wired for NeoPixel. Not only does your blade need to be wired for NeoPixel, but so does your hilt. And lastly, in-blade LEDs are not recommended for dueling because LEDs are fragile and they're going to be subjected to way more abuse in the blade than if they were in the hilt. And if only one LED out of those 144 or 288 die, then you're just going to have this dead spot in the middle of your blade somewhere, which isn't going to look cool at all. There's no way to fix that. You're going to have to replace the entire blade. So with all that said, in-blade NeoPixel LEDs are generally only used for either display purposes or cosplaying. So now that you know about NeoPixel blades, how do you actually connect them to the hilt? So if you think about a wall outlet, this thing is just a middleman between the inner wires of your home and any of your electrical devices. So can you imagine if any time you wanted to turn on, say, a lamp, you had to take out your entire soldering station and make a manual connection every single time? Hell no. That's why we've got plugs. These are adapters between your home and your electrical devices. And the NeoPixel blade equivalent to a wall outlet or a plug is called a Pixel PCB adapter. And this is how they work. You wire a hilt side adapter inside the emitter section of your hilt, then you insert and solder a bunch of metal pins into those holes, special pins that expand and retract when you press them down from the outside. This is your wall outlet. Then you wire a blade side adapter to the inside of your blade. This is a solid, flat printed circuit board that looks like it has a gold target on one side. This side presses presses up against the pins in your hilt and creates the same connections that your wires would between the soundboard and the LEDs. Now you can easily remove and insert your NeoPixel blade whenever you want. That's a PCB adapter. So as you can see, there's a ton of stuff going on with the lightsaber blade, but now that you know the outer and inner workings of a lightsaber, you can go shopping and feel more confident that you're getting the parts that you need for your project. In another video, I went over some essential supplies and tools that you should get if you plan on doing the soldering yourself. Over the next several weeks, I'm going to be building my own lightsaber and documenting the entire process for all of you to see. I do expect there to be a ton of mistakes, a bunch of failures on my part, but that's learning. Until then, you will subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll keep on living Star Wars. Tonight's HoloNet has been brought to you by Onaka Transport Solutions, the safest choice for all of your intergalactic transporting needs and a perfectly legitimate business. Good night. Are we off the air? We are? Okay. Who put that in there? In the prompt? Who? No, he did not. No, he didn't. Hondo told... Does he realize how illegitimate that sounds? A perfectly legitimate business? Why would a legit business need to specify... Shut up. Hey, did I just plug an illegal smuggling operation? I did, didn't I? Did I just... Oh, my stars. I'm gonna get fired.